Fruitful Living with Sissel Anderson. Here on Morning Joy, where truth matters.
Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and we're going to be talking about the importance of getting connected with our churches and our parish community with Sissel Anderson. Good morning, Sissel.
Good morning, Keith. It's good to be with you again on this Wednesday, especially when I've not just gotten off a plane and I'm a little bit more alert, hopefully, now.
Oh, I can already tell the difference. It's
You can just see it in my eyes.
That's right, the sparkle in your eyes. No, it's great to have you back here on Morning Joy. But yes, this is a great topic because I feel like, and I'm super guilty of parish hopping because I can't find the right balance of liturgy and community. And this is, like I said, a very important topic. So I'll let you kind of start. Like, why is it important to get connected with the church community?
Oh, yeah. It was really interesting. The other day, yesterday, I hadn't really decided exactly what I was going to talk about, but then Dave was interviewing somebody here locally in DFW. He's talking about keeping the Sabbath holy. And from that conversation, they were talking about community events and parish activities on a Sunday. And I suddenly was like, wait, community is a really important aspect of our faith and to live a fruitful life. So I grew up Protestant, as I've mentioned before, and it's a very different experience, or at least I can't really say because I didn't grow up Catholic, but it was a different experience for me because the churches that I grew up going to were pretty small. It was maybe usually only one service, so you kind of saw everybody at that service. If there was someone new at that service, you knew who that person, you knew they would be singled out. A little bit intimidating sometimes if you're trying out a new Protestant church, but because everyone knows when you walk in that you are the stranger, and you're going to get a lot of people being like, welcome to our church, let me tell you a little bit about this, we want to stay for our potluck. It's a lot and overwhelming, but there's a lot of beauty in having that community. And when you go to Catholic churches nowadays, especially if you certain areas that we're broadcasting to, it's some really, really big churches in the area that might have 7 or 8 masses. And sometimes it feels like you're disconnected from a community because you show up and no one's going to know you're new. I go to churches, masses for different places all around here because of my work here at the radio station and for other reasons, just because of a mass time or the location that I'm in. No one comes up to me and is like, oh my goodness, I've not seen you around before. Welcome to the parish. That's just not really how it works here because, you don't know that person, if I come to a 11 a.m. mass and I don't normally go to 5 p.m. mass and have been part of the community, I have made the mistake. At my parish, we have been making an effort to do kind of newcomer welcome or get to know each other events. And I saw this couple, sat down with them, and I was like, hi guys, my name is Sissel. Where, how long have you been here in the area? How long are you going to the church? And yeah, we've been going to this church for 15 years. And I'm like, that was a little embarrassing. I hadn't noticed, but we just didn't go to the same masses. But community is such a vital aspect of our lives. If you think about it, when Jesus, he had a group of people following him around, he had the disciples, and when he, ascended back into heaven, he left them to work together and to start churches and to build those communities. And so our faith journey has never been to fully walk alone. Obviously, there are aspects of our faith that are always going to be just between us and God. 100%. And that is a very vital part. But if you're not having that community of fellowship and of encouragement, it is it can be the most lonely thing, because we're not having someone, A, to encourage us, and B, to call us out when we need to. And we have our families, and that's a beautiful domestic church that we have. And that's first and foremost. Unfortunately, some of us either are away from our families. They, especially I'm going to speak to my young adults here who have moved for a job and are in a new area and they don't know as many people. They're away from their family, that domestic church. Or you just come, unfortunately, from a church that isn't practicing or just is not a good family relationship. And so it's really easy for people to kind of fall through the cracks when it comes to church communities. A lot of churches, and I'm sure a lot of us have gone to churches that are really, really good about having ministries for all ages and also community events. But I think sometimes, some people feel like they fall through the cracks. Like if a church is more, just because of the area, like in the suburbs, it's just more family minded. It just is going to be young families. The single person who is, 25 and single person who's 40 are going to feel left out. They're going to feel like none of these events are, schooled towards me, and they can go to events and feel a little bit like, hmm. But on the other end, I'd also argue that sometimes the single person or the person who's coming to mass, or a family, they also might make the mistake of coming to church with the idea of what can I get from church, and not so much what can I bring. It's just a big deal. I've worked with young adults and a lot of I'm a professional volunteer at my church. I've worked in a lot of different ministries, and that's a pretty common thing of people being like, well, why doesn't the church do this? Well, I think we should be doing this because I would come if we did this, or I would meet, oh, this date doesn't work for me, so I'll never come because I just don't like Mondays, or whatever the day may be. And it's very much an attitude of like, how can I get something out of church, and not so much like what am I putting into those groups and things like that. And so it's kind of like a two-way street. There's mistakes made on both ends. I think for like the individual, they could say, okay, I really wish that there was a group that was made, that is a little bit made for me. How can I help go about doing that? And sometimes also being open to maybe a group that you wouldn't think. For actually the most of the years I was in college, I went to a community college. I did not have a Catholic group in my college. There was like a non-denominational Christian group, but I didn't attend that. So, and my church at the time wasn't really having a stable college group either, or a young adult group. There was a few things here and there, and I'd go and join those, but I did not have a Catholic community, that was put together for me. I had to do it a lot myself. And in addition to that, like I'd have to basically get my own friends together if we wanted to do something like, let's go to mass together, let's do this. Or for a while, I honestly was just hanging out with people who are not college students. I went to the women's club. I brought the women's club average age down, okay? I was like the youngest member of it. But it was a beautiful thing too, because at the time I lost my mom in college. And so being around these women that were friends of my mom and were a good example to me, was something very beautiful. So we can take that responsibility as the individual to, I'm not just going to wallow in this, I don't have a community, and I can make that community. And then also the churches, they can sometimes be better out, like, being open to listen to ideas from parishioners about how we can be more welcoming. It is more difficult in a Catholic church setting compared to a small Protestant church, because of like the thousands of people that might come through at church doors who are vacationing and you don't know that, or who have just moved to the area. And you hear frequently people will come to a mass and no one says hi to them. And so they leave and they're like, well, I don't want to join this church community. And, that's kind of unfair on their part. And it's unfair also, to like not give the church the chance, and to also not come up and introduce and say, hey, I am new. And I guarantee if they did that, someone would be willing to, walk them through and introduce them to people.
Yeah, and that just, when you were talking, it just made me reflect on when I lived in Chicago. This was years ago, by the way. I felt a little lost. I hadn't really. I went to mass on Sundays, but it wasn't really. Would you say like a good practicing Catholic? Let's just say, and I got incredibly lonely, and I felt lost. And the only thing that helped was going to this parish that was like in walking distance and getting involved. Because I think you mentioned like a lot of these Catholic churches are huge, and from a perspective, it's like, well, there's so many people here. Like, what can I bring to the table? But as if you're someone who gets involved, you notice that like the number thins the more you kind of help out. There's not too many people, and so you really do become involved, and you start getting to know a lot of these people that continue to help out around and volunteer around the parish, and essentially become part of that parish. So that's very helpful to kind of remind us about, living out in the body of Christ, like Debbie, Georgiani, and Adam were talking about not too long ago. This is our role, is to be involved at a parish, and to not parish shop. I don't know if you've done that, Sissel. Have you been guilty of parish shopping?
I definitely have done, like, I've gone to different churches. There's a couple locally in my area. There's a Maronite Rite one that I've gone to for a bit as well. And there was a time in high school where I would go to mass at the Maronite church for, well, actually, no, I go to my church and I would help with the children's like liturgy thing. And then I'd go to the Maronite church for youth group. And then I would go to choir practice back at my church and sing in the youth choir in the evening, and then go to youth group at my church. And it was, I was an overachiever in high school at times. I don't know where I got that energy from. But yeah, you're totally right about, just that importance of why we're building up that community, because you will feel less alone in a lot of ways. I do get texts sometimes from my young adult friends, and they're like, how do you cope with going to mass by yourself week after week? Because it's really hard for me. And it makes me really sad, to hear that. And if I go to mass alone most of the time, actually, just because my sister and I's schedule doesn't match up, or, whatever it may be. There's a group of young adults that go to one mass that I'll sit with. But when you start getting volunteering and you meet that inner core of the church, you will start going to mass and suddenly be like, oh, yeah, I know at least 10 people here.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does change your outlook when you get more involved at your local level at a parish. And even then, like, it's funny you were mentioning there's I would say majority of Catholic churches, you feel like a number, I think, when you first start going. Sure. But all it takes is one person, and I forgot who said it. It was on a few shows back, but all they did was smile. And it basically, the person ended up continuing going. It's like, hey, I was about to just never come back to this parish, but you were essentially the person that, brought me to keep going to this parish. All it takes is a smile and maybe just a quick hello, instead of just racing to the car.
Pro tip, go to the same mass every week for a couple of months and sit in the same area, and you'll find that there are creatures of habit and you'll meet them.
Just don't sit in my pew. Okay.
Don't sit in Keith's pew.
Thank you so much, Sissel, for joining us every single Wednesday on Fruitful Living. But hey, we can also catch you because you are the producer for Back to the Father every Friday afternoon at 1 p.m. Central on our YouTube page. You're also the host of Young and Present in Dallas. But thank you so much for joining us. It's the end of our first hour. We'd love to thank all of those who are arriving at their destination. Maybe it's work, school, maybe it's Holy Mass. But hey, though there's a lot coming up on our second hour. We're talking about how we can, talk to those individuals that might not be pro-life, helping bridge that gap in the conversation with Anna Lulis. All right, we're talking about that. But hey, if this is us parting our ways, just wanted to say, God bless, and make it a joyful day. We'll see you tomorrow, 6 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Eastern, here on Morning Joy, where truth matters, but we'll see you after this break.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters, hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.